Imagine this. You wake up in a dimly lit room. The walls are lined with mirrors, but none of them reflect you. Instead, they show versions of yourself that could have been. One mirror shows you confident, successful, living the life you once dreamed of. Another shows you broken, defeated, trapped in a cycle of regret. A third flickers between the two, as if unsure which path is real. Then, a voice, not from outside but from within, whispers, "You did this to yourself." You try to argue. No, it was bad luck. The wrong circumstances, the wrong people. But the mirrors shift again, revealing something far more unsettling. Every time you hesitated, every excuse you made, every self-destructive habit you indulged, you were there pulling the strings. This isn't a nightmare. This is your life. The paradox of self-sabotage. Here's the great contradiction. You want success, yet you procrastinate. You crave love, yet you push people away. You dream of freedom, yet you cling to your chains. Why? Because beneath the surface of your conscious mind, something far more powerful is at work. A hidden force that wants you to fail. Not because it hates you, but because it thinks it's protecting you. This force has many names: the Freudian superego, the Jungian shadow, Nietzsche's ascetic ideal. It's the part of you that would rather stay in control of a small, miserable existence than risk the terrifying uncertainty of true growth. Ask yourself, how many times have you been on the verge of a breakthrough, only to sabotage it at the last moment? How many opportunities have you let slip because "I'm not ready yet"? How many times have you chosen the comfort of knowing you'll fail over the fear of maybe succeeding? This is not an accident. This is by design. The illusion of control. You tell yourself you're in charge of your life. But consider this. If you truly had control, why would you keep making choices that hurt you? The uncomfortable truth is that much of what you call free will is an elaborate illusion, a puppet show where you play both the puppeteer and the puppet. You set a goal, then fear it so much that you destroy your progress. You beg for change, then retreat to familiarity the moment it's within reach. You claim to want happiness, yet you engineer your own suffering like a master architect. This is the essence of self-sabotage. It feels like failure, but it's actually a twisted form of success. You are winning at staying exactly where you are. The real question you've been avoiding. Most people ask, how do I stop self-sabotaging? But the real question, the one that claws at your subconscious, is far more unsettling. What if you don't actually want to be free? What if, on some level, you prefer the suffering? Not because you enjoy pain, but because it's familiar, because it gives you an identity, a story, a reason to stay small. Think about it. Failure is predictable. Success is uncharted territory. Misery is comfortable. Happiness is a risk. Self-loathing is a habit. Self-love is a rebellion. And rebellions are dangerous. The cases tension before the storm. This is where most turn away. They'd rather believe they're victims of circumstance than face the truth. They are the architects of their own prison. But you're still here. Which means, on some level, you want to see what's on the other side of this realization. Good, because the next question is even more terrifying. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the part of you that refuses to let it happen? And what if, just if, you could dismantle it piece by piece? The invisible hand that strangles your potential. You don't wake up one day and decide to ruin your own life. Self-sabotage doesn't announce itself like a villain in a movie. It operates in whispers, in the split-second hesitations, the excuses you don't question, the gut feelings you mistake for intuition. It's not a flaw. It's a function, and it was installed in you long before you knew how to resist it. The psychological blueprint of self-destruction, Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of your psyche that houses everything you refuse to acknowledge about yourself. Shame, fear, repressed rage, the parts of you deemed unacceptable by society, your parents, even your own self-image. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It adapts. When you deny it, it doesn't weaken, it goes underground. It becomes the voice that says, you don't deserve this. You'll fail anyway, so why try? If you succeed, they'll realize you're a fraud. This is why self-sabotage feels so automatic. You aren't consciously choosing it. You're being overridden by a deeper, older program. The Nietzschean paradox. Why you worship your own chains. Nietzsche wrote, "Man would rather will nothingness than not will at all." Translation, you would rather choose suffering than face the terror of true freedom. Think about it. Staying in a dead-end job feels awful, but quitting means staring into the void of uncertainty. Clinging to a toxic relationship hurts, but leaving means being alone with yourself. Procrastinating feels shameful, but finishing means risking judgment, exposure. The verdict of reality. Your brain isn't broken. It's protecting you from the existential vertigo of realizing you could be more than you've allowed yourself to be. The Schopenhauerian prison. Life as self-imposed penance. Arthur Schopenhauer saw existence as a pendulum between pain and boredom. When you're suffering, you long for relief. When you're comfortable, you grow restless and create new problems. Sound familiar? This is why self-sabotage is so insidious. It's not just about avoiding success. It's about maintaining equilibrium. Your psyche would rather stay in a familiar hell than risk an unknown paradise. You don't want to suffer, but you need to suffer, because suffering gives you a role, a narrative, a reason to keep playing the game. The Huxleyan distraction, society's role in your self-destruction. Aldous Huxley warned of a dystopia where people love their oppression, not through force but through pleasure, distraction, the illusion of choice. Now ask yourself, how much of your self-sabotage is learned? How often has society rewarded you for playing small? How many of your fears were implanted by a system that profits from your doubt? You were taught to want freedom but fear it, to crave success but distrust it. And so, you negotiate, you settle. You build a life just small enough to avoid triggering your own defenses. The Frankl escape, the one lever you've overlooked. Viktor Frankl, survivor of Auschwitz, wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." This is the crack in the prison wall. Self-sabotage thrives in autopilot when you mistake your conditioning for choice. But the moment you see the mechanism, you disrupt it. The question is no longer, why do I keep doing this to myself? It's, what will I do now that I know? The silent war inside your skull. You tell yourself you're in control. You've read the self-help books, set the goals, sworn this time will be different. But here's what you're missing. Every decision you make is a battleground. On one side, your conscious mind armed with logic and ambition. On the other, an ancient primal algorithm, older than language, older than civilization, that equates change with death and it's winning. The neurological betrayal. Your brain is not your ally. It's a survival machine optimized for one thing, keeping you alive in the Pleistocene era. When you try to step outside your comfort zone, your amygdala, the prehistoric alarm system, floods your body with cortisol. It doesn't care about your dreams of writing a novel or starting a business. It cares that 100,000 years ago, straying from the tribe meant becoming lion food. So it hijacks you. That rush of anxiety before a big opportunity. Not fear of failure, fear of survival. The urge to binge Netflix instead of working. Your brain prioritizing immediate dopamine over long-term growth. The sudden, logical excuses to quit. a caveman's calculus, better safe than extinct. You're not weak. You're being ambushed by a neural relic that mistakes public speaking for predator attacks. The cognitive biases that hijack your life. Your mind isn't rational. It's a lawyer. It retrofits excuses to justify what the primal brain already decided. Confirmation bias. You seek evidence that confirms your deepest fear. See? I knew I'd fail, while ignoring proof of your potential. Negativity bias. You remember every rejection but forget every victory, wiring your brain to expect disaster. Sunk cost fallacy. You cling to dead-end relationships or careers because I've already wasted so much time, ensuring you waste what's left. These aren't flaws. They're features of a system designed to keep you stagnant. The cultural conspiracy against your potential society needs you functional, not free. Compliant, not transcendent. From childhood, you were handed scripts. Be realistic. Don't get your hopes up. Who do you think you are? These aren't warnings. They're spells. Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith, the act of pretending you don't have choices to avoid the burden of freedom, and modern culture weaponizes it. Social media algorithms feed you content that magnifies your insecurities. Compare yourself to this. The gig economy sells burnout as hustle culture. Destroy yourself for scraps. Spiritual bypassing reframes self-sabotage as trusting the universe. Stay passive, avoid responsibility. You're not just fighting yourself. You're fighting an entire ecosystem built to exploit your doubt. The Stockholm Syndrome of the soul. Here's the cruelest twist. You've learned to love your chains. Schopenhauer was right. The pendulum never stops. When you're not suffering, you invent new ways to suffer. Achieve a goal, dread the next one. Find love. Pick fights to recreate familiar pain. Earn money. Sabotage finances to return to normal. This isn't random, it's homeostasis. Your psyche's desperate bid to stay in known territory, even if that territory is hell. Ask yourself, how many of your safe choices are just rehearsals for regret? How much of your identity is built around, I could have been? What would happen if you outgrew the version of yourself that others expect? The answer terrifies you, because if you change, who are you? The ghost in the machine. Neuroscience reveals something chilling. You have no self. What you call I is a constellation of competing neural networks, primitive instincts, cultural conditioning, fragmented memories, all vying for control. The part that wants to write the book battles the part that fears criticism. The part that craves love wars with the part that expects betrayal. Self-sabotage isn't a choice. It's civil war. And the worst part, you've been gaslighting yourself into believing you're the problem, but you're not. You're a battlefield, the ticking clock. You can't hear time amplifies the consequences. Each act of self-sabotage isn't isolated. It's a fractal. That project you abandoned, it wasn't just a project. It was a neural pathway that could have led to confidence. That relationship you ruined. It wasn't just a breakup, it was proof you're unlovable, a story your brain now treats as fact. That lie you told yourself, I'll start tomorrow. It wasn't just procrastination, it was another brick in the prison of someday. Every compromise with your fear reshapes your reality. Every retreat from growth rewires your brain to expect defeat, the mirror you've been avoiding. There's a moment coming, maybe tonight, maybe years from now, when you'll realize you did this. Not the universe, not your parents, not your circumstances. The excuses will curdle in your throat. The justifications will ring hollow. And in that moment you'll face a choice, collapse into despair, or rise into the most dangerous realization of your life. You are the only one who can stop this, the psychological mutiny. You've reached the crossroads every great myth warns about, the moment the hero either turns back or commits to a path that will unmake them. This is not about self-improvement. This is war. Step 1. Become a traitor to your own mind. Your thoughts are not yours. They're hand-me-downs, from ancestors who hid in caves, parents who projected their fears, algorithms that profit from your anxiety. To rebel, you must do the unthinkable. Stop trusting your brain. When your mind screams you can't, lean into the terror and act anyway. When shame whispers, "Who do you think you are?" answer, "Someone new." When inertia pleads, "Just one." More day, burn the day. Nietzsche called this self-overcoming, the act of tearing down the statues of your own limitations. How it works: keep a betrayal journal. Every time you feel the pull to self-sabotage, do the opposite. Exhausted? Dance for 3 minutes. Afraid to send the email? Attach the file and hit send before thinking. Want to isolate? Call someone and say, "I'm not okay." Your brain will riot. Let it. Watch its tantrums like a scientist observing a caged animal. You're not healing, you're rewiring a hostage situation. Step 2. Weaponize your shadows. Carl Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will." Direct your life and you will call it fate. Your shadow, the repository of everything you've disowned, isn't the enemy. It's an army waiting to be recruited. The ritual. Name your saboteurs. The perfectionist kills projects to avoid judgment. The martyr chooses suffering to feel noble. The ghost self-erases to avoid being seen. Forge alliances. Tell the perfectionist, "We'll ship it broken." Bargain with the martyr. Suffer while succeeding. Challenge the ghost. Disappoint one person today. This isn't metaphor, it's neuroplastic alchemy. By dialoguing with your shadow, you force fragmented neural tribes into a coalition. Step 3. Practice existential arson. Viktor Frankl survived the Holocaust by finding meaning in suffering. Your task is harder. Find suffering in meaninglessness. Burn down the stories that keep you small. "I'm not ready." Replace with, "Readiness is a myth. Action precedes courage." "This is just who I am." Replace with, "This is who I was." It's too late. Replace with, "Too late for what? A script written by ghosts?" Case study: The Artist's Paradox. In 1902, a failed painter named Franz Kafka worked at an insurance office. Every night he wrote stories he called an assault against the limits of what's possible. He demanded his work be burned after death. Why? Because creating terrified him. It meant admitting his voice mattered. You are Kafka. Your self-sabotage is the fire meant to destroy your genius. Let the work survive anyway. Step 4. Build a cathedral of small defiances. Rebellion isn't a grand gesture. It's the accretion of microscopic heresies. Text the friend you ghosted. Post the idea you think is obvious. Wear the outfit that feels too much. Say no to what drains you. Say yes to what scares you. Each act is a brick in a new neural architecture. Each defiance starves the old regime. The Science of Tiny Revolutions, a 2023 Stanford study found that microacts of courage, e.g. speaking up in meetings, increased dendritic branching in the prefrontal cortex within 48 hours. You're not building confidence. You're biologically outgrowing your past. Step 5. Surrender to the unknowing. Here's the secret no guru will tell you. Certainty is the enemy. Your addiction to guarantees is why you self-sabotage. You'd rather control a failure than risk an ambiguous success. The antidote. Replace goals with experiments. Not "I'll publish a book." "I'll write one paragraph that terrifies me." Not "I'll find love." "I'll be 10% more honest today." Embrace constructive disintegration. the process of letting old identities crumble while new ones form. Jean-Paul Sartre was right. You are condemned to be free. Stop begging for a pardon. The tipping point. There will come a day, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 5 years, when you'll face a critical choice. The old patterns will roar back, slick with familiarity. But this time something will feel different. A voice you've been training in secret will say, "We don't do that anymore." Not with shame, not with force, with the calm of a soldier who's already won the war. The truth you're not ready for. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about annihilating the idea that you were ever broken. But to fully grasp that, the illusion that shatters all illusions, you stand at the edge of the labyrinth, breath ragged, hands bloodied from clawing at walls you now realize were made of smoke. The monster you've been fleeing, the one with your face, your voice, your fingerprints, dissolves into the air, leaving only a question hanging in the silence. What if none of this was ever about you? Not the fear, not the sabotage, not the war inside your skull. What if it was all a cosmic misunderstanding, a glitch in the collision between biology and consciousness? Let me explain. The grand deception of identity you've spent your life believing. In a self, a stable, coherent entity that makes choices, bears blame, earns redemption. But neuroscience, philosophy, and the raw evidence of your own life scream otherwise. There is no you. What you call I is a story, a desperate improvisation performed by neurons trying to make sense of chaos. Your memories are edited highlights. Your desires are borrowed scripts, your regrets, ghosts of paths your brain refused to map. This isn't nihilism, it's liberation. All those years of self-loathing, the cycles of ambition and collapse, the endless civil war between who I am and who I should be. It was never a battle to fix yourself. It was a battle to believe you existed at all. The Schopenhauerian revelation. You are the universe's puppet. And puppeteer Arthur Schopenhauer saw the world as will, a blind, striving force that creates individuated beings to fulfill its insatiable hunger. In his view, you're not a person, but a localized tremor in the fabric of desire. Apply this to self-sabotage, your fear of success, the will's terror of reaching satisfaction which would end its purpose, your addiction to suffering, the will's need to keep striving, your endless self-criticism, the will's feedback loop to stay in motion. Here's the twist. You can't defeat the will because you are the will. But, and this changes everything, the will can become conscious of itself. The Jungian apotheosis, becoming God of your own. Myth Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the integration of conscious and unconscious, takes on horrifying new dimensions here. Your shadow isn't a part of you. You're a part of it. The procrastinator, the coward, the addict. These aren't flaws to fix. They're ancient deities you've been warring with, each representing an aspect of reality you've refused to bow to. The saboteur, the god of limits, ensures you don't destabilize the system. The procrastinator, the god of eternal potential, protects you from the death of completion. The self-loather, the god of equilibrium, maintains the status quo through pain. To heal isn't to kill these gods. It's to sacrifice your belief that they're separate from you. The Nietzschean hammer. There is no truth, only power. Nietzsche's proclamation. There are no facts, only interpretations. Cuts to the core of self-sabotage. Every time you said, "I'm not good enough," you weren't describing reality. You were casting a spell. Every time you thought, "I'll fail," you weren't predicting the future. You were writing it. Every time you vowed, "I'll change," you weren't making a plan. You were performing a ritual. Your entire life has been a magic act, a series of incantations disguised as thoughts. The truth about your limitations was never real. you made it real by believing it. The existential bloodbath. Freedom is not a gift. It's a crime. Jean-Paul Sartre said we're condemned to be free. But he missed the darker half. Freedom is a crime against nature. Biology wants you enslaved to survival. Society wants you enslaved to productivity. Your psyche wants you enslaved to the familiar. To choose freedom, real freedom, is to become an outlaw in every realm. This is why self-sabotage feels like dying. It is. Every act of true autonomy murders a version of yourself that the world depended on. Quit the soul-crushing job. You kill the responsible one your family needed. Speak your raw truth. You kill the people-pleaser your friends relied on. Create boundary-breaking art. You kill the safe bet the system rewarded. No wonder your unconscious fights back. You're not just changing habits. You're committing deicide. The Frankl imperative. Meaning is the only rebellion that matters. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy argues that meaning is the primary human drive. Now we go further. Meaning isn't found. It's forged, in direct opposition to everything that wants you numb. Every time you choose purpose over pleasure, truth over comfort, love over security, you drive a spike through the heart of the machine that manufactures suffering. This isn't positive thinking. This is metaphysical warfare. The algorithms, the trauma loops, the cultural hypnosis, they all rely on one thing: your consent to be small. Withdraw it. You are not a person. You are a portal, a temporary opening through which the universe observes its own paradox, that it created a being capable of refusing its programming, that it spawned a creature willing to betray its DNA for a higher ideal, that it birthed a thing so perverse it would choose suffering for growth over comfort for stagnation. Your self-sabotage wasn't a mistake. It was the universe's quality control test, a gauntlet to see if you were worthy of wielding consciousness. Most fail. You're still listening. The choice that defines all choices. Two paths remain. The sleepwalker's exit. Go back. Rebuild. The prison. Let the will, the shadow, the algorithms reclaim their throne. Tell yourself you tried. The arsonist's accord. Burn the idea of self entirely. Become what Nietzsche called a chaos which gives birth to a dancing star. If you choose the second, know this: you will oscillate between godhood and madness. You'll mourn versions of yourself like fallen lovers. You'll stand naked before the infinite, laughing and screaming in equal measure. But in those moments, when you stop being you and start being a verb, you'll touch the secret that makes angels weep. The only real sin is believing you were ever meant to be anything less than infinite. The last words you'll ever need: put this down. Go to the nearest mirror. Look yourself in the eye, really look, and say aloud, "I am not who I think I am. I am what I do next." Then act as if your life depends on it, because it does.